Have you ever noticed how some older folks living alone seem to radiate a quiet, unshakable peace? They're not lonely, not chasing, just sitting on their porch with a mug of tea, glowing with a wisdom the rest of us are scrambling to find. In this video, we're diving into the world of seniors who choose solo living and the incredible, underrated qualities they've mastered, like savoring their own company, guarding their time like gold, and finding joy in the smallest moments. Stick around until the end, because these 10 powerful lessons might just show you how to craft a life that's not just lived, but deeply cherished, no matter where you are on your journey. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you like this video. You can help me continue to spread the old age lesson. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like this video, please comment number 1. If you don't like it, comment number 0 to let me know, so I can make a better video for you. Now let's get started. Number 1. They've mastered the art of inner companionship. When you're young, solitude often feels like a punishment. It's the kind of silence that comes with being sent to your room, forced to sit with your thoughts as if they're a scolding parent. But as the years pile up, something transformative happens. That same quiet, once heavy with loneliness, becomes a warm embrace, a homecoming to the self. For older adults who live alone, this isn't just about surviving solitude. It's about elevating it into an art form, a deliberate and joyful act of self-companionship. Take Harold, a 76-year-old retired carpenter I met at a community center. His life was once a symphony of noise, the clamor of his children's laughter, the rhythmic pounding of hammers on wood, and his late wife's habit of blasting 1950s rock and roll from a tinny kitchen radio. But now, Harold's mornings are still, save for the soft chirping of birds that flock to the weathered birdhouse he built decades ago. Over a cup of black coffee, he sits at his kitchen table, the grain of the wood as familiar as an old friend. "When my wife passed, the quiet was deafening," he told me, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "I used to miss the chaos, kids yelling, tools clanging. Now, I talk to myself more than I probably should, but at least I know the conversation's honest." His grin was wide, unguarded, the kind that comes from someone who's made peace with their own company. This is the essence of inner companionship. It's not about merely tolerating solitude or drowning it out with distractions like endless TV or scrolling screens. It's about savoring it, leaning into it with intention. I came across a story online about Elaine, an 80-year-old widow living in a small apartment filled with photographs and memories. Every evening, she pours herself a modest glass of Merlot, sets her old record player spinning with Ella Fitzgerald's smooth voice, and talks aloud to her late husband Arthur, as if he's still sitting in the armchair across from her. "He always hated this song," she chuckles to herself, imagining his playful grumbling. "But now he's stuck listening, isn't he?" It's not delusion or denial. It's a ritual that keeps her heart tethered to love, to joy, to the life they shared. Elaine's not losing her mind. She's keeping her spirit alive, painting her evenings with the colors of memory and affection. Mastering inner companionship means no longer waiting for someone else to complete you. It's realizing that you don't need an audience to laugh at your jokes or a witness to validate your moments of joy. You become your own best friend, the kind who knows you prefer cornflakes with a splash of cold milk, who forgives you when you misplace your keys for the 3rd time in a week, and who greets you each morning with a nod in the mirror, as if to say, "We've got this." It's a quiet revolution, this ability to find wholeness within yourself, and older adults who live alone have often perfected it. They've learned to dance alone in their kitchens, to hum tunes no one else hears, to sit in silence and find it not empty, but full of themselves. Number 2, they've reclaimed their time and guard it like gold. There's something almost sacred about the way older adults who live alone reclaim their time. In a world that often feels like it's racing forward, they've stepped off the treadmill and declared their minutes their own. Gone are the days when their schedules were dictated by the demands of others. Picking up kids from school at 3 o'clock sharp, rushing to get dinner on the table by 6 o'clock, or remembering Aunt Martha's birthday on the 12th lest she remind you of your oversight for years. Back then, their calendars were battlegrounds, each hour claimed by someone else's needs. But now, living alone in their later years, they've taken back their time and guard it like a rare heirloom, polished and cherished. Consider Marjorie, a 72-year-old widow I connected with through an online gardening forum. She's created what she calls Slow Start Thursdays, a ritual so deliberate it feels almost rebellious. On these mornings, nothing happens before noon. No appointments, no errands, No answering the phone unless it's her daughter or, as she puts it with a twinkle, someone calling to say I've won the lottery. If a robocall dares to interrupt, Marjorie answers in a theatrical French accent, spinning absurd tales just to amuse herself before hanging up. I spent 40 years waking up to alarm clocks and people tugging at my time, she told me, her voice firm but warm. Now, the only thing tugging at me is my cat, Pippin, when I forget his breakfast. And even he knows to wait until I'm ready. Her laugh was infectious, a testament to the joy she's found in owning her hours. For these older folks, time is no longer a commodity to be spent or squandered. It's a luxury, a finite treasure they've learned to value deeply. They don't waste it on petty dramas or obligations that don't serve their peace. They've earned the right to say no without guilt, to let a quiet morning stretch languidly into afternoon, or to take a nap at 2:17 p.m. simply because their body whispers, rest. And there's no shame in it, no lingering sense that rest equals laziness. If they want to spend an hour rereading a dog-eared novel they've loved since their 20s, they do so with relish. If they feel like watching a game show and shouting at the contestants as if they're coaching a sports team, they lean into it with unapologetic glee. This reclamation of time is both a liberation and a quiet act of defiance. In a culture obsessed with productivity, speed, and constant connectivity, these older adults choose slowness on purpose. They wear watches not to track every second, but because the ticking feels like a companion, or because the band complements their favorite flannel shirt. Their days are no longer dictated by external demands but shaped by their rhythms, whether that's tending to a garden, savoring a cup of tea while watching the rain, or simply sitting in a recliner, lost in thought. It's a freedom most of us won't fully grasp until we're fortunate enough to reach that age ourselves, when time becomes not a race, but a gift to be unwrapped slowly, with care. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Number 3, they've developed a fierce sense of self-reliance without losing their softness. There's a remarkable strength in older adults who live alone, a self-reliance that's been forged through years of navigating life's challenges, yet tempered with a softness that keeps them open to the world. Take Bernice, an 81-year-old widow I met at a friend's church potluck, though she only shows up for the pie, as she'll tell you with a mischievous grin. Bernice lives alone with her half-blind dog, Winston, who barks at shadows and occasionally at his reflection. She's the kind of woman who radiates capability. I once watched her climb onto a bucket to change a porch light bulb, a screwdriver clenched between her teeth like a pirate's dagger. When a neighbor rushed over to offer help, she waved them off with a laugh. "Honey, I gave birth in a blizzard in '68, she said, her voice steady as she twisted the bulb into place. "I think I can handle a little light." But what makes Bernice extraordinary isn't just her toughness, it's the way she balances it with a heart that remains wide open. She still weeps with joy when her lilies bloom each spring, their delicate petals a reminder of life's fleeting beauty. She writes birthday cards in elegant cursive, dotting each one with tiny smiley faces, and she's the first to show up with a tray of homemade oatmeal cookies when a neighbor is grieving. Every Christmas, she knits scarves for the mailman's children, whether they wear them or not, because the act of giving keeps her connected to the world. This is the sweet spot of self-reliance. The ability to stand tall on your while still embracing the vulnerability that makes you human. Many assume that independence means building walls, becoming guarded, suspicious, or unwilling to ask for help. But older adults who've lived alone for years have mastered a different kind of strength. They can change a tire, memorize the dizzying list of medications in their cabinet, or troubleshoot a leaky faucet with the help of a YouTube tutorial, all without losing their cool. Yet they'll still pause to watch a butterfly flutter against their windowsill, or tear up when a song on the radio reminds them of a long-ago dance. They've endured profound losses, spouses, friends, perhaps even children they've outlived, and faced uncertainties like unpaid bills or health scares. Through it all, they've kept going, not out of stubborn pride, but because they refuse to let life's hardships strip away their warmth. This blend of resilience and tenderness is like a well-worn quilt, passed down through generations. It's stitched together with care, tough enough to withstand years of use, yet soft enough to wrap around you on a cold night. Bernice, Harold, Elaine, Marjorie. They're all proof that you can be your anchor and still leave room for love, for wonder, for the small joys that make life worth living. Their self-reliance isn't about shutting the world out. It's about knowing they can handle whatever comes, while still holding space for the beauty that remains. It's a lesson in living fully, alone but never lonely, strong but never hardened. Number 4. They've fine-tuned their BS radar. Let me tell you something about older folks who live alone. They've got a lie detector sharper than anything the FBI could dream up. Forget hiring a private investigator or poring over body language manuals. If you want to know if someone's spinning a yarn, just invite them to sit down for tea with someone like Miss Thelma, an 80-year-old widow with a gaze that could cut through fog. Give her 10 minutes, maybe 5 if she's had her coffee, and she'll tell you exactly what's up. She doesn't need a polygraph. She'll read the truth in the way someone blinks too fast, fidgets with their hands, or lets their smile slip just a fraction too soon. Older people who live solo have spent years, sometimes decades, in their own company, and that solitude has sharpened their minds into something extraordinary. Their knees might creak, and they may not move as fast as they used to, but their perception? Razor sharp. They've heard it all, every half-baked excuse, every slick sales pitch, every "I'm just checking in" that's a prelude to asking for a loan, a favor, or a slice of their precious time. They've learned to spot the difference between genuine kindness and crocodile tears from a mile away. Take George, for instance, a Vietnam vet who lived in a tidy bungalow down the street from my cousin. George was in his late 70s, with a gravelly voice and a laugh that sounded like it had seen some things. He once told me, "After 70, you can smell fake sincerity like milk left out in the August sun. It's not just sour, it's unmistakable." And he wasn't exaggerating. George could sit quietly in a room, sipping his sweet tea, and pick up on the tiniest tells, a nervous chuckle, a too quick change of subject, or the way someone's eyes darted when they claimed they just wanted to say hi. He wasn't cynical, mind you, just clear-eyed. He'd learned the hard way, through years of broken promises, fair-weather friends, and door-to-door salesmen, what authenticity looks like and what it doesn't. You see it in how older solo dwellers choose their company. They've got no patience for nonsense anymore. They don't waste energy on people who drain their spirit or show up with ulterior motives. If someone's there to gossip, stir up drama, or push some agenda, they'll find themselves politely but firmly ushered out. I've seen it happen. My great-aunt Clara, who lived alone well into her 80s, had a knack for this. If a neighbor dropped by with a juicy rumor or a veiled request for something, Clara would suddenly remember a casserole in the oven or a phone call she had to make. She'd smile, nod, and vanish like a magician pulling off a flawless trick. No fuss, no confrontation, just a graceful exit. But here's the beautiful part, they don't do it out of bitterness. They're not shutting people out because they're jaded or mean-spirited. They've just had enough time, enough heartbreaks, headaches, and hard-won lessons, to know what's worth their energy and what's just noise. They listen not just to what people say but to the unspoken cues, the way someone's voice tightens when they're hiding something, the way their posture shifts when they're trying too hard to impress, or the subtle energy that fills a room when someone's being real. It's like they've developed a sixth sense, honed by years of quiet observation. There was this woman I read about on a forum, a spry 79-year-old named Dolores, who joked, "I don't even need someone to lie to me anymore. My hip starts throbbing when they're dishonest, like it's got a built-in radar." I laughed, but I believed her. There's something almost mystical about the way older folks who live alone can sense inauthenticity. And yet, with all that wisdom, they don't turn cold. That's the magic of it. They're not suspicious, they're selective. They're still warm, still open to connection, but they keep the thermostat low until you prove your worth turning up the heat. They've built quiet, intentional lives that don't have room for chaos. And they guard that peace with the ferocity of a mama bear protecting her cubs. Except in this case, the cubs might be a favorite recliner, a dog-eared novel, or the remote control tuned to their favorite channel. When someone shows up with flattery that's too thick, drama that's too loud, or motives that don't add up, they don't argue or make a scene. They just smile, offer a polite excuse, and slip away. Because at that age, nothing feels better than staying out of other people's storms and keeping their skies clear. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Number 5. They've cultivated daily rituals that feel sacred. When you live alone, especially in your later years, your days are no longer ruled by someone else's schedule. No boss, no kids, no spouse dictating the rhythm of your life. You might think that kind of freedom would lead to chaos, But for many older folks, it's the opposite. Something beautiful happens in that quiet space. Rituals begin to take root, small but profound acts that give their days structure, meaning, and a kind of sacred glow. These aren't rituals with incense and chanting, unless that's their thing, no judgment here. I'm talking about the kind of personal, intentional habits that turn ordinary moments into something holy, something that anchors them in a world that's always changing. Take Leonard, for example, an 82-year-old retired postal worker who lived alone in a modest apartment after his wife passed away. Every morning, without fail, Leonard would rise at 6:30 a.m., as if he still had a mail route to run. He'd shuffle to the bathroom, lather up with a bar of soap that smelled like pine, and shave with an old-fashioned safety razor, the kind that could take off half your face if you weren't paying attention. Then he'd put on a crisp button-down shirt, even if he had nowhere to go, and sit at his small kitchen table with a steaming cup of black coffee and a single slice of toast, always cut diagonally. "It tastes better that way," he'd insist with a twinkle in his eye, as if he'd cracked some culinary code the rest of us were too dense to understand. Science might not back him up, but Leonard was unwavering. After breakfast, he'd unfold the daily newspaper, delivered by a carrier who probably didn't know how much that bundle of ink and paper meant to him, and read it cover to cover, lingering over the crossword puzzle with a pencil he sharpened by hand. Interrupt him during that sacred hour, and you'd get a polite but firm rebuke. "Unless you're bleeding or the house is on fire," he told me once, "don't mess with my crossword." To an outsider, Leonard's routine might seem mundane, even rigid. But to him, it was a lifeline, a way to ground himself in a world that had shifted dramatically over the decades, through wars, losses, and the slow erosion of the life he'd once known. That's the thing about these rituals. They're not about productivity or impressing anyone. They're about connection, to the past, to the present, to the quiet pulse of your own heart. For older folks living alone, these small acts become love notes to themselves, reminders that their life, even in its stillness, is worth celebrating. Maybe it's lighting a candle before dinner, not because it's fancy but because the soft flicker makes a bowl of soup feel like a special occasion. Maybe it's humming an old tune while folding laundry, the same song their mother sang in a kitchen long gone. Or maybe it's sitting on the porch every evening at precisely 6 p.m., watching the sun dip behind a favorite tree, not for any grand reason but because the way the light filters through the leaves at that exact moment feels like a gift. I heard about a woman named Esther, a 77-year-old who lived alone in a rural town. Every Sunday, she'd bake a single biscuit, not a batch, just one, using her grandmother's recipe. She'd mix the dough by hand, roll it out on a flour-dusted counter, and eat it warm with a pat of butter and a drizzle of honey. "It's like having Sunday dinner with my grandmother again," she said. That biscuit wasn't just food, it was a portal to her childhood, a way to hold on to someone she loved. Another man, a widower named Harold, told me he waters his houseplants every Wednesday morning while talking to them about the weather. "They grow better when you chat with them," he claimed, "and who am I to argue?" His ficus looked happier than most people I know. These rituals, small as they seem, are what give life its rhythm when you live alone. They're not about filling time, they're about savoring it. They're about finding beauty in the ordinary, about creating a sense of continuity in a world that can feel unsteady. And in that simplicity, there's a kind of holiness, a quiet rebellion against the idea that a life lived alone is somehow less full. These folks know better. Their days are rich with meaning, stitched together by these tiny sacred acts that say, "I'm still here, and this life is still mine." Number 6. They know how to entertain themselves like champs. If there's one thing older folks who live alone have down to an art, it's keeping themselves entertained without needing a crowd, a smartphone, or a packed social calendar. They're not just good at it, they're virtuosos. These are people who've rediscovered the kind of playful, self-sufficient joy most of us lose after childhood, and they do it with a flair that's equal parts inspiring and delightful. They don't need bells and whistles or someone chattering in their ear to feel alive. They've learned how to make their fun, and they do it like champions. Take Mabel, a 76-year-old who lives in a cozy cottage on the edge of a small town. Every Thursday, without fail, she hosts what she calls her dinner and drama night. It's just her, a tray of frozen lasagna heated to perfection, a glass of red wine poured into a crystal goblet she inherited from her mother, and 3 episodes of her favorite British murder mystery show. She doesn't just watch, she participates. She pauses the TV to guess who the killer is, muttering theories to herself about motives and alibis. When she's wrong, which she often is, she'll yell at the screen, "Oh, come on! The butler? Again." Those shifty eyebrows should have tipped me off. Mabel's not lonely during these nights. She's the star of her private theater, laughing at her commentary and savoring every moment. Then there's Carl, a Vietnam vet with a slow drawl and a wit sharp enough to cut glass. Carl's got a weekly ritual he calls fridge roulette. Every Tuesday, he opens his refrigerator, surveys the odds and ends, half a zucchini, some questionable yogurt, a lonely chicken thigh, and challenges himself to make something edible. "Last week," he told me with a chuckle, "I made something that looked like a casserole but tasted like revenge. Ate it anyway. Waste not, want not." Carl's not cooking to impress anyone. He's cooking because it's a game, a way to keep his mind sharp and his sense of adventure alive. Older folks who live alone often pick up hobbies that surprise you, not because they're flashy, but because they're so unapologetically them. There's no pressure to perform or post about it online. They're not trying to go viral. They're just curious. I knew a man named Walter, 81, who started painting watercolors after his wife passed. He'd never touched a brush before, but he'd sit at his dining table for hours, smearing blues and greens across cheap paper, creating landscapes that looked more like abstract dreams than anything real. "They're not good," he'd say, grinning, "but they're mine." Then there's Rose, a 74-year-old who took up birdwatching and keeps a notebook filled with sketches of finches and sparrows, each one labeled with a name she made up, like Sir Peckington or Lady Fluffle. I read about a woman online, Evelyn, who gives every day of the week a theme to keep things interesting. Mondays are movie days, where she watches old black and white films with a bowl of popcorn. Tuesdays are try something new days. She recently attempted sushi for the first time and described it as cold fish regret, but laughed about it anyway. Wednesdays are for window shopping online, where she builds elaborate shopping carts filled with things she'll never buy, like sequin dresses or high-end blenders. "It's like playing paper dolls, but digital," she wrote. "Keeps my imagination young." The secret here isn't about filling time. It's about enjoying it. These folks have rediscovered the kind of imagination we all had as kids, when a rainy afternoon could turn into an epic adventure with nothing more than a cardboard box and a stick. They're not afraid to laugh at their jokes, sing off-key to the radio, or talk to their plants, their cat, or even the TV. And that's not weird, it's vibrant. It's a reminder that you don't need a room full of people to feel entertained. You just need to be willing to play, to lean into the small joys, and to let yourself be a little silly. Older folks who live alone. They've got that down to a science, and it's a masterclass in living fully, no matter who's watching. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Number 7. They're courageous enough to choose peace over noise. Courage isn't always about leaping from airplanes or scaling jagged peaks under a blazing sun. Sometimes, it's the quiet rebellion of a person in their 60s, 70s, or 80s who looks at the whirlwind of their life and says, "Enough. I choose peace." That's not just bravery, it's a revolution of the soul. Consider Samuel, a retired mechanic with hands still calloused from decades of wrench turning, who spent 5 years living with his daughter and her 2 teenage sons after his wife passed away. He adored his family, cherished the laughter and the chaos of their bustling household. But there came a morning when the clatter of pots in the kitchen, the relentless hum of 24-hour news channels, the ping of text messages, and the teenagers' shouted debates over who ate the last Pop-Tart felt like a storm he could no longer weather. "I love them," he told me, his voice steady but soft, "but I was starting to feel like I was living inside a washing machine stuck on spin cycle. My nerves couldn't take it anymore." So, at 72, Samuel made a choice that some might call selfish, but it was anything but. He rented a modest 1-bedroom apartment on the quiet edge of town, where the only sounds were the rustle of leaves and the occasional hum of a passing car. No dramatic farewell, no resentment, just a man claiming his right to stillness. Now, he wakes to the gentle chorus of birds outside his window instead of arguments over who forgot to buy milk. He spends his mornings sipping coffee on a small patio, watching the world wake up slowly, deliberately. That's not weakness. That's a man who looked at the expectations of the world, stay involved, stay loud, stay in the thick of it, and said, "No, thank you. My heart deserves better." This kind of courage isn't loud or flashy. It's the bravery of recognizing that your nervous system isn't built for constant noise, that your spirit craves space to breathe. It's the audacity to nurture silence, to see it not as emptiness but as a canvas for thought, for healing, for being. I once came across a comment from a woman named Gloria on a video about older adults living alone. She wrote, "At 68, I stopped attending every church potluck, every family barbecue, every neighborhood watch meeting just because I felt I had to. I love people, don't get me wrong. But my peace is worth more than their expectations. I sit with my tea, my cat purring beside me, and I'm free." There was no bitterness in her words, only the calm clarity of someone who had found liberation in simplicity. When you're young, the world sells you a lie. Constant activity equals vitality. Stay busy, stay connected, stay loud, or you're missing out. But for those older folks who choose to live alone, peace isn't passive, it's a deliberate, daily act of defiance. It's not about shutting people out or retreating to some ascetic cave in the mountains. It's about curating a life like a gardener tending to a cherished plot, pulling the weeds of obligation, shooing away the pests of drama, and permitting yourself to sit in the quiet without a shred of guilt. That takes a kind of grit most people never muster. And those who do, they carry a glow, a quiet radiance that comes from knowing they've chosen themselves. Number 8. They see beauty in the ordinary that most people overlook. There's a gift that comes with age and solitude, a superpower most of us overlook. The ability to see beauty in the ordinary, in the fleeting moments the rest of the world rushes past. Older people living alone have honed this skill, turning the mundane into moments of quiet poetry. I'll never forget Elsie, an 84-year-old woman with a wardrobe of floral house dresses and a purse that always jingled with Werther's originals. She lived in a small apartment with a view of her neighbor's weathered garage, hardly the stuff of postcards. Yet every morning, she'd sit by her window with a cup of instant coffee and watch the sunrise. "It's nothing fancy," she told me, her eyes sparkling, "but when the light hits that rusty old gutter at just the right angle, it glows like molten gold. That's how I start my day, with gold." It wasn't just a garage to Elsie, it was a daily reminder that beauty hides in the simplest places, waiting for someone patient enough to notice. When you live alone, especially later in life, and you're not rushing to meet deadlines or performing for an audience, your senses sharpen. You start to hear the world differently, the soft pop of a toaster as it releases warm bread, the faint creak of a wooden floorboard underfoot, the rhythmic patter of rain before it fully arrives. You notice the same squirrel darting across your backyard 3 mornings in a row, and suddenly you're invested in its tiny saga, cheering it on like it's the star of a nature documentary. These aren't just moments, they're lifelines to a world that's always speaking, if only you slow down to listen. Then there are the rituals, small but sacred. Folding laundry straight from the dryer, the fabric still warm and fragrant with detergent, becomes an act of care. Watering a cluster of potted plants on a windowsill, nothing exotic, just geraniums or a stubborn aloe, feels like a quiet pact with life itself. Boiling eggs to the perfect firmness, not because anyone else cares, but because you've earned the right to enjoy your breakfast exactly as you like it. Or playing an old song, maybe Nat King Cole or Patsy Cline, and feeling the presence of someone long gone, not with sorrow but with a gratitude that softens the edges of memory. I once read a post from a man named Cliff, who lived alone in his late 70s. "I'm never lonely," he wrote. "I know when the robins return to my feeder in spring. I see the first daffodil push through the dirt. I say good morning to the moon when it lingers past sunrise. These things are my company." That's not isolation. That's a deep, rooted presence. It's a fluency in the language of simplicity, a refusal to chase the next big thrill when the world already offers so much to those who pause. In a culture obsessed with novelty, new experiences, new purchases, new posts, these older folks have discovered something radical. Boredom isn't the enemy. They've befriended it, found the magic in a dust mote twirling through a beam of sunlight, the poetry in a dog's contented sigh, the romance of brewing a single perfect cup of tea. That kind of seeing is a skill, a quiet rebellion against a world that demands you keep running. And those who master it, they live lives richer than most, filled with a depth that no amount of wealth or fame can buy. If you are still watching this video and finding these lessons useful, please comment number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Thank you for your valuable time. Number 9. They're surprisingly adventurous on their terms. Don't let anyone tell you that older people living alone have settled into a predictable, adventure-free existence. They're out there rewriting what it means to explore, chasing new experiences on their terms with a courage that's all the more powerful for its subtlety. Take Joyce, a 79-year-old firecracker of a woman who navigated the world with a walker adorned with pink tassels, like a two-wheeled declaration of independence. "I don't climb mountains anymore," she'd say with a grin, "but I climb new experiences." Last year, she decided to conquer the world of online grocery shopping. It wasn't smooth sailing. 2 weeks of trial and error, 6 exasperated calls to her tech-savvy granddaughter, and 1 bewildered Instacart driver who showed up with 2 gallons of almond milk she hadn't ordered. "But I did it," Joyce said, her laughter filling the room. "That was my Everest, and I planted my flag." For older folks living alone, adventure doesn't always look like bungee jumping or backpacking across continents. Sometimes it's the quiet thrill of walking into a cafe alone for the first time in decades, ordering a latte, and lingering for hours with a book or just the hum of strangers' conversations. It's signing up for a pottery class at the community center, hands trembling with excitement and nerves as they shape wet clay into something imperfect but theirs. It's trying sushi at 83, wrinkling their nose at the unfamiliar texture, and declaring, "Cold fish on rice, but I've had worse." I read about a man named George, a widower in his 70s, who embarked on a solo Amtrak journey across the country. He'd always loved the mournful whistle of trains, but never had the time to ride one for the sake of it. So, he saved up, packed a small suitcase, and spent days crossing plains and mountains, striking up conversations with strangers in the dining car. "Best meatloaf I've had in years," he wrote online, as if that small detail was the crown jewel of the trip. But it was the journey itself, the courage to go alone, to savor the rhythm of the rails, to meet the world on his terms, that made it an adventure. These folks know something the rest of us often forget. Life is fleeting, health is fragile, and time is a gift. When they say yes to something new, whether it's learning to bake sourdough from a YouTube tutorial or taking a late-night stargazing class at the local library, they mean it. They savor it. Their adventures may not go viral or make headlines, but they're written in the quiet pages of their history. Moments of stepping beyond comfort zones without needing applause or validation. It's just them, their curiosity, and the courage to keep growing. That's the kind of adventure that outshines any selfie at a famous landmark. Number 10. They've redefined what it means to be content. Contentment is one of the great myths of modern life. We're told it's the reward for a checklist of achievements. The perfect career, the sprawling house, the packed social calendar, the Instagram-worthy vacations. Only after you've hustled, conquered, and proven yourself, the world says, might you earn the right to feel content. But older people living alone? They've cracked the code. They've rewritten the rules and found contentment in the quiet, unassuming moments that most of us overlook. I met Walter, an 85-year-old former accountant, in a small house with a screened-in porch and a stack of well-worn crossword books by his recliner. His life was simple, almost austere, but his eyes carried a warmth that felt like a secret. I asked him once, "Walter, what's the best part of your day?" He paused, gazing out of the trees beyond his porch, and said, "Around 4:30, I make a cup of Earl Grey and sit out here. The wind moves through the pines, and it's like the earth letting out a long, slow sigh. It reminds me I'm still here, still part of it all." That was it. No grand vacations, no accolades, just the rustle of leaves and the warmth of a chipped mug in his hands. That's the magic of these folks. They've let go of the chase. They don't need their happiness to shout or sparkle for the world to see. They've stopped measuring their lives against someone else's highlight reel because they've learned a truth most of us take decades to grasp. Enough is enough. Enough love, even if it's a memory of someone gone. Enough joy, even if it comes in smaller doses now. Enough beauty, even if it's found in a geranium blooming defiantly on a windowsill or a faded quilt that smells faintly of lavender and years gone by. I once saw a comment online from a woman in her 70s. "I used to think happiness meant being surrounded by people, noise, activity. Now, I find joy in watching the light shift across my living room floor in the afternoon. It took me 73 years to slow down enough to see it, but it's there, and it's enough." That's not settling, it's seeing. It's the courage to look at what's in front of you and decide, this is good, this is mine, this is enough. These older folks living alone aren't adrift or forgotten. Many are exactly where they want to be, crafting lives measured not in milestones but in moments. The first sip of morning coffee, brewed just the way they like it. The familiar creak of a floorboard that says, "You're home." The comfort of a sitcom rerun they've seen a dozen times but still laugh at like it's new. These are their sacred rituals, their quiet victories. And in a world that equates contentment with grandeur, they're proof that true happiness is often the softest, smallest thing. A breeze through the trees, a cup of tea at 4:30, a life lived on their terms, glowing with the beauty of enough. So there you have it, the 10 quietly powerful qualities of older folks who've embraced solo living, turning quiet mornings into sacred rituals, simplicity into strength, and their own company into a source of joy. What about you? What's one lesson you've learned from these incredible seniors that's sticking with you? Maybe it's savoring your own time, finding beauty in the ordinary, or choosing peace over chaos. Drop a comment below and share one thing you've learned and plan to bring into your own life. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories that inspire you to live fully in every moment. Until next time, keep finding joy in the little things.